Hey friends, how's it going? It's Nick with Urban Farm Boys, and welcome back to another episode of Crochet and Chill. If this is your first episode that you're seeing, the intention with these little mini episodes on my channel is just to do some longer form videos, maybe once a week, where I do exactly what it sounds like. Do some crocheting, chat with you guys, answer questions, talk about whatever I'm in the mood to talk about. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. And tonight I'm going to work on my temperature blanket. I am doing a granny square temperature blanket where each month is one big granny square. And it is April 18th today, so it's time to get started on my April square. If that sounds like a good time for you guys, then just get cozy, get something to drink, get whatever you're working on, maybe a crochet project or knitting or whatever else you might be into. If you're listening to this in the car, make sure you're just listening and not watching. Keep your eyes on the road. And settle in. We're just going to hang out tonight. So to start, if you guys are new and this is the first video that you're seeing, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've been making quite a bit of crochet content recently, if you're into that kind of thing. But me and my partner make a lot of videos about homesteading in general. I have a lot of houseplants, if you can see behind me. So I do a lot of houseplant and gardening things, cooking, meal prepping, all sorts of that kind of thing. So you can subscribe, or you can go back and just check out old videos that I've posted. There's quite a lot of them. I've been making videos on YouTube since 2006. Full disclosure, this is the third time I'm trying to make this video. I just did like 30 minutes of filming and then realized that my microphone was not turned on. So this wireless microphone is connected to my camera and a receiver. And if you record and they're plugged in but they're off, the entire video records silent. The internal mic on the camera doesn't do anything if the other one is plugged in, so the entire video is silent. So that's annoying, so we're starting over. I also tried to make this video last night. I got home from work and I was ready to work on the temperature blanket. And I'll talk to you guys in a little bit about my gauge and my colors that I'm using, but I knew I was going to need a fair bit of this sage green color, and I was like, where's my sage green? I know I bought extra sage green for this month because I knew the temperature ranges would require it, and I grabbed it and it was wrong. It was the wrong green. So here's what I did. I've been using loops and threads yarn for all of the granny square projects that I've been working on for like 6 months now. I have in front of me, I can just show you. I have these bins that I got at Joann's. They sell them at Michael's too, where I keep my loops and threads soft acrylic yarn, which is available at like every Michael's. It's very affordable. And I have like 3 bins of these colors, but I knew I was out of the sage green, so I had ordered this bigger skein to have more sage green. I grabbed it last night and then immediately realized it's wrong on 2 different levels. First of all, this is not the soft acrylic. This is Color Craft acrylic. So I looked at it and it's a thinner yarn, even though they're both rated as a size 4 medium. It is, and they're called Sage, Loops and Threads Sage. It's wrong. This yarn is thinner. So I was thinking, well, is anybody really going to notice if it's thinner? It's not a whole lot thinner. Maybe I'll just work with it. And then I grabbed my March blanket, which has some of the sage color in it. It actually started with sage in the beginning. And I compared them, and it's also the wrong color. I don't know how well you guys will see this, but I'll show you a comparison in a second. It's the wrong size and the wrong color. So I got all frustrated because I was all settled in and had everything set up to film for you guys, and then realized this is wrong. So tonight I went and got the right one. So this is the correct one, the soft classic loops and threads. And if I compare these two side to side, you should, wow, with this light they almost look the same. Let me try to change the lighting a little bit. You might not be able to see. I can assure you, and in my last video you could see the difference. Okay, I promise you. Oh, maybe it's better if I back up. Can you see here? They're not the same. This is lighter. This has more green to it. This is a lighter color. I think you can see it better if it's farther away. Anyway, that was last night. So that was my first fail. Tonight with no audio was my second fail. But now I'm ready to start. What I did last night was, when I realized I couldn't do my temperature blanket, but I wanted to crochet something, was I would have been making these crochet plant pots. So I was gonna show you guys how I make plant pots. But they're a little more complicated. With granny squares, you don't really have to think. So I'm capable of doing granny squares and talking. What I realized is with plant crochet projects, I have to think, and then I'm not so good at the talking, so it didn't work. But what I have made is this little pot, and then in your pot you need soil, right? So I made a little disc of soil, and then I had to work on my leaves. So I made, what did I make last night? I made this one, which is a vine with three leaves. I think these are super cute. I am going to make a tutorial about this, so you gotta subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that. But I made one vine with 3 leaves and then realized I am not very good at talking to the camera while I'm doing something like this. So I just abandoned the project altogether. But today I made 2 more vines with 2 leaves each. This is a smaller pot, so I think I'm probably going to have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 vines coming out of it, but you can kind of get the idea. So there will be a video about this, and I'll show you guys in that video the other ones that I've already made. I've made one that is basically this size, and then one that is much bigger, and they're super cute. And if you like plants and crocheting, there's a million things you can do with it. So that was last night. Now that we have audio, yes, we have audio. Let's get to our temperature blanket, shall we? As I mentioned, I will be making a sort of how-to video on everything you need to know about how I'm doing my granny square temperature blanket. But I have this gauge. I basically looked up the temperature range for where I live. I live in New York, about 45 minutes north of New York City. And we have quite a range of temperatures. We have cold winters and we have fairly hot summers into the 90s or even over 100. So it's a good range. So I kind of split that up. I chose a color for each temperature range. I think I used 6-degree blocks essentially. And then I used the yarn that I had. I started like feverishly crocheting like 6 months ago, and I bought all of these colors from Loops and Threads because they were cheap and I liked them. And I didn't want to invest a bunch of money into a year-long crochet project in case, you know, I got bored and bailed halfway through. So I used what I had, and this is the gauge, right? So it's a little bit traditional in that it's sort of like the rainbow, you know, cooler colors for lower temperatures, warmer colors for higher temperatures. But it's affordable, it's what I had, and I'm kind of into it. So I'm going to be using my gauge tonight. What I thought I would do is just get started so you can kind of see how I do it. This is not the how-to video, but you'll see kind of what I do in this video. And then I thought I would just chat with you guys and maybe answer some questions. And so if you guys have any questions for future videos for the Crochet and Chill series or whatever else I do, just put them in the comments below. I'm looking at everybody's comments, so throw those comments below. And the next thing that I'm going to need is the temperatures. So I use weatherunderground.com. They show you, you just plug in your zip code and they show you historical temperature for any date range you want. So I have, like, I took a screenshot of it. I have like the 1st through the 16th. Oh, you can't see. but I do. I promise I do. So we're gonna get started. What I've learned is, I was hoping I would get away from those cooler temperatures that I used in January and February and March. We started off strong in April, but then it did drop into the 40s for 4 days in a row. So I'm going to go back a little bit to those cooler colors. But the first day of April was 52 degrees where I live. So if I look at my gauge, 51 to 56 is sage green. So I'm going to start my granny square for April with sage green. And I have, like I showed you, I have all my colors right in front of me here. And I have a bunch of loose yarn because I've already filmed this, but it had no audio. So I did the first round already, but I pulled it out for you guys so I can redo it. And I start my granny squares, I always start just with a slip knot, and then I make a chain of 4 and a slip stitch to the first stitch to connect them. You can also do the magic ring. I've never done the magic ring. Chain 4 and slip stitch them together works for me. So that's what I do. So I have done my little chain 4, slip stitch together, and that'll give you a little ring in the middle. Like I said, not a tutorial, but I will show you guys if this is your first sort of encounter with granny squares. My 4 stitches end up with a little hole in the middle. Okay, little hole right there. And I'm going to build around that little hole. So you just have to do clusters of double crochets. To start, actually let me flip this. To start, most tutorials will tell you to do a chain 3. I don't like how that looks. You do you. It's personal preference. So I just do a chain 2. It works just fine. It's an aesthetic thing for me. So you start with a chain 2, and that counts as your first double crochet. And then you do 2 more double crochets into that center space that you built. And that's your first little cluster. That counts as your first cluster. We need 4 of those. And I chain 2 in between each cluster. So, and I'm also sort of crocheting over this little tail. That'll make it less to weave in, and it also allows you to pull the center of your square tight really, really well. So I just did a chain 2. I'm going to do my second cluster of 3 double crochets. That was 1 and 2. And we'll do 3, and then I'm just going to do the same 2 more times. So in between I'm going to chain 2, 3 double crochets. Now I have 3 of them. I'm just going to kind of push them aside to give myself a little more room. I'm going to chain 2. I think granny squares are such an easy beginner project. You need to know how to do a chain, you need to know how to do a slip stitch, and you need to know how to do double crochet, and that's it. And you can learn those in absolutely no time, and you can get started on this project. If you're doing more traditional crocheting, a lot of people get frustrated when they're doing multiple rows because they lose stitches and their project doesn't end up square. I experienced that when I started too. I think my mom taught me initially when I was a kid to do double crochet, and I always dropped stitches. I couldn't figure out where I was going. With these you almost can't mess it up, and if you do, you see it really clearly and you can just pull it out a little bit and start over. But this is my first little square in sage green. So that's April 1st. Cool, huh? What I want to do is tie this off and weave in that center ring. What I do usually just with the first round is I do a chain 1 just to be able to secure the yarn a little bit better. And then cut that guy, pull tight here, and that's it. So I'm going to weave in this center tail because it will drive me nuts the entire time I'm working on the month of April. But you can see, let me show you. You see this center hole where we worked into, and that's just the chain 4, right? That we connected, and this is the tail. If I pull this tail, it tightens right up. You can get it super duper tight, or if you like it looser, you can do that too. But you don't have to do the magic ring if that's too confusing for you. This works just as well. So I'm going to weave this around and around to secure it and then cut it off. And then we'll start a few more rounds and I will look at some questions from you guys. So this is April 1st. Isn't it cute? And this is the front. You can always see the front because you have these pretty like tidy V shapes at the top of your stitches. The back just looks a little bumpy. The V's aren't as clear. Okay? That doesn't make sense. Hopefully you can look in the description below where eventually I will have done a tutorial and then you can watch me explain that in more depth. But this is the front. I always turn my work after every round and I get really very square granny squares. If you don't do that, they kind of end up twisting and you can notice it, especially with something this big. So on this guy I have 30 rounds for every square I'm doing 30 days only to keep it even, but I flip every round so it's reversible and very square. And if you measure this, like it's a perfect square and super easy. Okay, so that's April 1st. So for April, I think I gotta change colors here. April 2nd, we were 45. So I need this guy. And then after that, I'm gonna need 2 days of my cornflower blue color. So that's fine. And then it's gonna warm up and it's gonna look cool. So I'm going to find some questions that you guys have asked me. I'm gonna settle in a little bit and work on some more rounds. All right, reminder to self and reminder to others, this is not a tutorial. This is Crochet and Chill, okay? So please, if this interests you and you want to learn more about how to do it, subscribe because a how-to video will be coming very soon. I'm just gonna work on this and chat with you guys. So I'm looking at the questions you guys posed. Someone had mentioned, do you crochet in public? I think this is a really fun question because I never thought I would. I think if you guys do, comment below on your experience, but I think like anyone who's doing something like this in public gets quite a bit of attention maybe, or at least looks, which I'm not necessarily interested in receiving. And then also, let's be honest, like I'm a male, I'm 39, so I'm maybe a little bit younger than some of your average crocheters, I don't know. So for sure, like there may be attention if I'm crocheting in public. What I realized was like a month ago or so, Andrew and I went to Portugal and I was working on like 3 different projects. I was making a granny hexagon cardigan. And I was making this rainbow granny square project that I was also really excited about. And then we were going to Portugal for like 10 days. and I didn't want to leave them at home. So I absolutely was that person. I packed my carry-on bag with my rainbow yarn, Rainbow Picasso from Ice Yarns, and I brought 4 different skeins of colored yarn for my granny hexagon cardigan, and I sure did crochet in public. I crocheted on the plains the entire way there and back. And that was as public as it. Oh, we sat in Paris for a few hours, and I crocheted the whole time in the airport in Paris, waiting for our connection while Andrew took a nap. I did get a lot of looks there, but I didn't even care. I crocheted a little bit while we were in Portugal too, but it was just like in our Airbnb in the mornings, because I tend to wake up earlier than Andrew, even with jet lag. But yeah, I sure did, and no one said anything, and who the heck cares? I did get some looks, but I felt like, especially in the airport in Paris, we were in like a lounge waiting, and I could tell some people were looking, but they were like curious. And who cares? Jesus, if someone had a comment, I'm sure I could come up with a response. So yes, take your crochet with you. Do it. All right, let's finish this little cluster and find the next question. Someone said, I heard you mention Ice Yarns. Is that from Turkey? Yes, it is. Have you guys been to Turkey? I have been to Turkey several times. My dad actually used to own a property in Turkey. It is a wonderful place, and apparently they have wonderful yarns there too. I'm going to make a video all about Ice Yarns. I'm going to take you guys with me while I shop on their website, and then I'll do a little unboxing for you. Let's see. Someone said, I'm Mexican. Please tell me, what do you mean by temperature blanket? Fair question. A temperature blanket is a blanket that you make where you designate different colored yarns to represent different temperatures, and then you look at the actual temperature where you live and you crochet a row or a round for each day of the year. At the end of the year, you have a blanket which has a colored row or round for each day of the year. You can do different variations on that. You could do a month, you could do 6 months, you could do look up the day you got married, or the day that your child was born, or an important date to you, or year to you. You can customize however you want, but temperature blanket basically means you're making a blanket where each color represents a certain temperature. And I'm doing a granny square temperature blanket with 1 square for each month. So, and I'm doing it for this year for where I live right now. As mentioned, check the link below. Within a week, check the description below. Within a week, I'm going to be making a sort of comprehensive how I'm doing this, and you will get a lot more information there. Darlene2421 asks me, do you know how to read a pattern? So, Darlene and others, I actually have a really hard time following patterns. My mom taught me, like I mentioned, basics of crochet when I was little, and she had little crochet magazines with different patterns in them, and that I think is more of an advanced technique. Do you guys know how to read music? I was a musician. I was about to say I wasn't, but I was in a band and an orchestra for years when I was younger, and I can read music, and I know that's gibberish to many people. That's sort of how I feel about crochet patterns. I can get the gist of crochet patterns, but I'm more visual, and I need like visual confirmation that I'm doing the right thing. And I guess I haven't had the bravery really to just go off of a pattern and assume it's going to go well and pull it all out if it's going badly. So I would say if you're a beginner, maybe don't look at patterns first, because you're going to have to learn shorthand crochet language and figure out how to translate crochet language into, you know, a manual skill. Look at YouTube. You don't have to watch my videos. There's a million excellent videos on YouTube for how to crochet. Follow a visual where you can watch someone do something first, master some of the basics, and after that, find patterns you like and practice. I bought off of Etsy. I've been doing some granny square tank tops. I've made 2 this month, and they're cool. I'll show you guys soon. But I want to try some other things, so I actually bought a pattern off of Etsy last week, and even looking at that pattern stresses me out. I'm going to try. But I would say if you're a beginner, watch a video tutorial first instead of trying to learn how to follow a pattern. That's my tip. But on the note of reading patterns, I will make another video for you guys. There's something that I have been wanting to work on since 2010. So 14 years later, maybe it's time. My mom was the one who taught me to crochet, and she passed away in 2010. I was 26 when that happened. She was 59. And she was a crocheter. She made blankets. I never really saw her make anything but blankets. I have 2 blankets that she made me. My sister has 1 or 2 as well. But when she died, she was working on another blanket. And she always did the same pattern. It was sort of a ripple stitch. And it was unfinished. So I took her unfinished blanket. It was white yarn. I took her blanket. I took the pattern magazine that was next to it. And she had several skeins of yarn. And I took them. And I have them still in a box. And my goal since 2010 has been to finish the blanket that she was not able to finish. Here's what I would like to do. I don't want to ruin her blanket because I don't know how to do that stitch that she did. But there was a little, one of those crochet magazines with it, and I have a feeling she was following the pattern from that magazine. Now that I'm a little better at crocheting, I'm going to see what I can interpret from the magazine. But most likely what I'm going to do is make a video where I show you guys her blanket and hopefully can get your feedback on how to finish it. I've wanted to do that forever, but I wasn't good enough that I wanted to kind of like ruin her blanket. So it's in a box. It's been in a box for 14 years, and I really would love to finish that. I took all the extra yarn that she had, so I have a bunch of skeins of her white yarn. But I also kind of thought it would be cool if I finished the blanket that she started in a different color. Something that looks good, with the white. Anything would really look good with the white. Maybe it would look nicer if I just finished it in the white, but that yarn is now old. It's been sitting in a box, and most likely I'll need quite a bit more yarn to finish the blanket, and I don't know how to get the same yarn. So what I thought I would do was choose a new color, find a similar yarn, choose a new color, or maybe like a very contrasting color. Hers is white, so I thought about doing black or gray or like a dark blue, something that I like too, and then finishing it in a contrasting color. And then I will have a blanket that she started and I finished. It's a little bit like emotional there. Obviously I have a lot of boxes of her belongings. My garage is full of them, and I really need to do a purge and get rid of things. But that blanket I don't want to get rid of. I want to actually finish it, and I think that would be really special. And maybe one day when we have kids, they could have it, or they could continue it. Who the hell knows? It could be anyway. So I have a lot of attachment to that blanket, and I don't want to do it wrong. So I think I'm going to come to you guys for help. I'm going to show you her blanket, and hopefully someone will be able to recognize the pattern, and if not, I'll just figure it out. All right, Adventures with Mama Tina 4879. I love that name. Says, have you thought about amigurumi animals? That potted plant is adorable. I have. I watch, as I mentioned, I watch Elise Rose crochet. She does a lot of really cute amigurumi. I've been watching Zach Crochet Me Zaddy. Zach, I think if you happen to see this, I believe you live in Australia, but I'm pretty sure you're from New Zealand. If you're not, I'm so sorry, but I love New Zealand. New Zealand is my favorite country in the entire world. I want to live there one day, and hopefully within 5 years I will. I even got married in New Zealand back in the day, but that's a story for another video. I love New Zealand, and Zach does really cool stuff too, and it's always fun to see other male crocheters. So if you guys haven't watched his videos, please go and check them out. Amigurumi for me is more concentration than I'm looking to do right now. There's counting, you have to focus. You also have to be maybe more creative than I feel like I am. It can be done. It's just, here's why I'm digging the granny square thing so much, and you can do a lot with granny squares. I'm also going to make a granny square video dedicated to how I do them and all the different things you can do with them. But you can do a ton of different things with granny squares like I've been doing without having to think as you're going. So amigurumi is, I think it's patterns. I'm not creative enough to do it without a pattern, and it's just not what I'm feeling right now. Having said that, the potted plants that I've been